Sorry guys, up till now, I've always told you guys to do a slow and low pour. And that's because it allows for a delayed first drip. So this is what led me to believe that the V60 01 size or the small origami has always been the optimal brewer of choice. And it's because I'm able to pour really low and slow. Well, as I test the traditional techniques and invent new ones, I'm creating a new way to brew better. Traditionally, one of the most popular ways to brew a coffee is to have a bloom. Now, for those of you that don't know, I don't really like to bloom, and I made a very comprehensive guide on this last week. But the low and slow pour at the beginning has always been kind of my solution to not blooming. However, I've been thinking with a low and slow pour, when you watch it carefully, there's actually not a lot of gases being released. So that led me to believe that the first little bits actually take a lot more time because the gases act as a barrier that prevent the water from extracting the flavors. And if the gases aren't being released, then technically, even with a low and slow method, the first drip would have to be extremely delayed for it to effectively be absorbing flavors. So this is where this new kind of technique comes in. Instead, what I've been doing is doing a very high agitation pour. I'm pouring from an extremely high height, very slow, and using a droplet pour to really hit the bed. Now, the droplet pour works because the droplets tend to sit on the top. And this way, not only are we going to have a very delayed first drip, we're going to be releasing a lot of the gases, so it's an effective delayed first drip. Now, before I get into the rest of the video, I just wanted to shout out and thank all the support I've been receiving, not just from my Instagram, but my YouTube, and then all the comments that have been going through on both the shorts, the reels, and the videos themselves. Now, it really actually is nice to be able to hold discussions with people. So if you guys have any further or more complicated questions, please send me a picture on Instagram DMs. I actually try to answer all of them and reply to everybody. Now, I also wanted to give a quick shout out and thanks to all the people that come to my cafe. So if you guys didn't know, I own the coffee shop Fabrew. Now at Fabrew, all I do is I tell people to tell me what they want and I design it for them. The only condition is I only do pour overs. Now here is where the interesting thing is. These pour overs, they're literally made with all the techniques I know, but sometimes I get an epiphany or a new idea or I see something new that's happening with the beans. Sometimes I change the way I pour, and I try to learn a lot from them. So shout out to all the customers I get, and they're the ones that allow me to learn so much and observe so much so that I can share these techniques with you guys. So that leads me into making sure that you guys have subscribed to me, because if you guys want to follow along the journey that these customers of mine have so heartedly sacrificed themselves for, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification so you can get the latest updates on my newest techniques. So the pour technique itself is very easy, okay? Like I said, you kind of pour high and slow still. So slow is still very important, but this time we're pouring from very high. And then we use the droplets to kind of hit the bed and then let it just suspend itself. Now, I noticed that if you move away from the middle, the first drip is going to come out a little bit earlier than if you only stayed in the middle. So if you want to have a very, very delayed first drip, you want to stay in the middle. Now, as for how slow I get, I'm pouring about 2 to 2.5 seconds up to the 50 milliliters. I noticed around the 50 milliliters or like the 25-second mark, the first drip tends to come out. And so the idea is to first just kind of let all the gases out before the first drip comes out. And so this is where the problem is. When you allow all the gases to leave from the grinds, what happens is the reason why grinds sink is because there's no gases to suspend it, and therefore clogging happens. Now, because we're releasing all the gases earlier, this technique encourages clogging to happen at a quicker pace because, you know, we're releasing the gases all out earlier. So the solution is to actually fix the pour after the first drip comes out. So what I do is when the first drip comes out, which is around the 25 seconds, 50 milliliters, I actually start to lower my kettle back into the low position that I love so much. But as I'm kind of going down, you want to speed up your pour. It's because the flow rate is still going to be maximized if you're going to be able to suspend your grinds. So you want to be able to lift your grinds to the top as quickly as possible. Now, moving out to the edges also creates a lot of agitation. And so if you have a bean that naturally doesn't have a lot of gases, you'll want to just stay in the middle and don't agitate it. And it makes the pouring process much easier. I think that the droplet pour technique is probably one of the simplest techniques I've actually implemented into the single pour technique, and it has actually simplified everything. So what happens is if you have a dark coffee that has a lot of gases, you want to use a droplet technique, and after the first drip comes out, you want to stay just high because you know that there's going to be a lot of gases. Now, this comes with a lot of experience. First time trying with a new coffee bean isn't going to be as easy. There aren't too many indicators on if it's going to be super gassy or not. But if it is a super gassy coffee, then just stay in the middle. And then as you lower and speed up, you want to move to the edges and hit all the floating grinds coming up. So I finished pouring everything, which is about 280 milliliters, in 50 seconds. So it only takes me about 30 seconds to finish the rest of the brew. So 230 milliliters out in 30 seconds. Yeah, I think that about sums it up. Let me actually do a quick demonstration for you guys. And before we do a quick demonstration, I'm going to talk about the beans. Today's coffee is going to be a coffee from Honduras. It's going to be my new bean for Insanity. So I don't have a lot of time to rebrand or redesign anything. Previously, the Insanity coffee is with a Costa Rica coffee. Now it's going to be with a Honduras. The Honduras is kind of like more of a Ferrero Rocher flavor. It has really nice milk chocolate flavors and has a little bit of nuts on the undertone. And it's medium light body texture. And so what happens is this coffee doesn't give off a lot of gases. And so I'll be showing you guys that. And this is important to know because this means it just sinks very quickly because there's not a lot of gases to release. And so when you do the high and slow droplet pour, you're going to be releasing most of the stuff there. And why this technique has now simplified my single pour method is because you don't even have to hit the floating grinds. You just kind of speed up and go down and bam, you're done. You just give it a quick stir and boom, you're done. The pour has been simplified and the flavors have become better. So let's get right over and let's show you guys how to do a quick droplet pour. I went much quicker in the pour at the end. However, if your coffees give off more gases, you want to move around more just so that it can sink the floating grinds a little bit better. And I don't think there are very many coffees that'll give off less gases. But if that's the case, stop the droplet pour earlier. You would want to lower it at an earlier stage and start speeding up the brew. So this kind of comes with experience. Now, every gear is a little bit different, so I just want you guys to kind of understand the overall idea of how it works. You just want to start with the droplets. Very easy, very simple. Let that hit. Get a delayed first drip. Go down much faster, and then if you still have clogging issues, then you can either grind coarser or then kind of, play with your timings. But I think at that point in time, you would just kind of play around with the grind size. Now, I guess I forgot to go over the grind size and the water temperature. The water temperature, just use anything over 90 degrees. I think that would be best. When it comes to the grind size, I'm always kind of at the finer grinds anyways. I'm probably using around the 400 to 450 microns. Now, with this technique, I noticed that more of the microfines get dislodged and moved to the edges earlier. And so what we're left with is more of a granular kind of bed at the top and then more of the microfines at the sides. I tend to find less clogging, ironically, with this method, and it's probably due to the much faster pour I have. If I wanted to have a heavier texture, I'd probably be a little bit slower and less heavy-handed towards the end of the brew. And that would probably fix a lot of the issues. So I just want you guys to understand how this technique works and then kind of how you can adapt it to your beans and your kettle and your grinder. So yeah, I hope you guys like this technique. Try it out. Let me know how you like it. Leave it in the comments section below. Send me pictures on Instagram DMs as well, or just tag me in Reels or whatever it is. I'd love to hear your thoughts and see how we can kind of improve each other and get a better cup of coffee. With that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye!